Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar to talk about extending the power of NetSuite with automated AP and AR, brought to you by yaypay and Tipalti. I am at yaypay, and today we'll be speaking with one of your peers, Rob from ServiceRocket. Rob, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me. I am the founder and CEO at ServiceRocket, and we are a company that focuses on training and support and being reliable partners for our customers. And we do a lot of services around the world. We've been on NetSuite since 2013. And a couple of years ago, we started a journey to really get the most out of NetSuite, and that took us on a pathway with both of you guys, with yaypay and Tipalti. So here to share some of the journey and some of the pains that I've had as a CEO and some of the great wins that we've had together.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for that. We're happy to have you, and we'd love to learn a little bit about ServiceRocket itself. So why don't you give a brief overview of the company and what your purpose is?
Sure. So, we aim to be very reliable partners, and we help fast-growing technology and software companies build out their training and support offerings. So all the things that come under services and apps. And we started in Sydney, Australia. We're now headquartered in Palo Alto in the Bay Area and have offices in Chile, Malaysia, London, throughout the US, about 250 Rocketeers, as we call ourselves. And with that, we have a multi-subsidiary NetSuite infrastructure, and we invoice customers out of Australia and the US and around the world, and we have a lot of suppliers in many different currencies all around the world.
Fantastic. So definitely a solution and providing the ability for you to take off some of that mundane, repetitive, less, I would say, lower value tasks from your business is we're excited to hear about how that's helped. So before we get into that, why don't we have Kristen just give a brief overview on Tipalti and what Tipalti offers to the market?
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. My name is Kristen Richards. I work here at Tipalti on our alliances team, focusing on our direct relationship with NetSuite as well as our relationship with yaypay. So who we are at Tipalti? We are a domestic and global accounts payable solution. So we add functionality to help streamline the whole AP process along with NetSuite and yaypay. So over there on the right side, you can see the whole gamut that we offer. So we offer supplier onboarding and management to OCR, AI invoice processing, two-way, three-way PO matching, as well as domestic and global payments in over 190 countries and 120 currencies, spanning across 6 payment methods. And just some of the things that we help our customers do is we offer greater efficiency. So eliminating up to 80% of the payables workload by managing those domestic and international suppliers, closing the books faster. So accelerating that financial close by 25% with automatic reconciliation of payments into that NetSuite instance, as well as strengthening compliance and control. So we are KPMG approved, with the tax compliant forms, the different W-9s, 1099 forms, as well as OFAC. We have OFAC screening so that we make sure that we're paying out correctly. Also there off to the bottom right is a couple of our customers, Roku, Twitch, Zipline, just a couple customers to name.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just a little bit about yaypay. So yaypay, we focus on consolidating the AR process all the way from credit to cash application. Today, Rob will talk a little bit about how they use yaypay and Tipalti to, as I said, automate those lower value tasks to your business and provide some real good kind of time saving, cost saving, and build up those customer relationships, whether it's with your direct customers or the suppliers that you're working with. So let's get right to it. So Rob, Why don't you share with the audience what the biggest problem was that you had before choosing to automate AR and AP? And you could start with one or the other, but kind of share that journey with us.
Sure. So I don't have a finance background, right? So I'm a CEO. I have two CFOs on my board, and so I get a lot of questions at board meeting time, as any CEO would. And for the most part, I ignored a lot of what was happening in NetSuite and really just, okay, assume everything's fine. We have NetSuite and everything's going to work. And I think over time we began to realize that, hey, we can get a lot more out of what is there. And we looked at a lot of the built-in modules. And I think the parts where NetSuite expands outside of the firewall down into customers and suppliers, we found that we needed a little bit more help. And so for us on the yaypay side, we were doing a lot of, on the receivables side, right, with yaypay. Before that, we were doing a lot of manual, emails and following up customers for invoices. And we didn't have a huge DSO issue, but we had, from my perspective, a customer experience issue and consistency issue, right? With that, hey, were we sure that all the invoices went out and all the follow-ups happened, and things were just a little bit more ad hoc. So just a lot of manual follow-up, and a lot of that was very time-consuming. On the payable side, I think the biggest one for us here was just, okay, as we've grown, to a bigger company and making more and more payments around the world, it starts to become more about compliance and like, okay, where are the bills flowing, who's paying them? And underneath that, we know what it's like to be a small self-funded company, and we want to be a really good customer to our suppliers. And so how quickly and efficiently can we pay bills, but also make sure at the same time that, everything's within what we thought we were paying for, everything has the right approvals and the right, the right blessings before it goes out. So kind of slightly different issues there, but if you bring them together, it's all about trying to be consistent, connect with customers and suppliers, provide a really good experience for them, and also know that we have the control and the auditing at the back end with as little manual effort as possible.
Absolutely. I guess without that finance background, looking into systems like this and actually kind of trying to determine how you're going to automate yourself, you must have quickly become very empathetic to the function, right?
Yeah, well, I think, I look at it in two ways. I look at what does the customer or supplier get, and how do they feel when they get it, and how do we follow things up, right? And then also, how do our team members, our Rocketeers, feel about doing that job? So when it's repetitive, what is their experience like? And if things become very repetitive and boring, I think mistakes will start to creep in, or things are just not done as enthusiastically. So we look at ways to automate. I mean, day to day, we do a lot of work with Atlassian around Jira and automating processes. And so our mindset is there to, help do that. And so, and that led us to yaypay and then to Pulte. So.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's get into hearing some of the things that you've seen as benefits. What would you say is the biggest benefit that you've seen after implementing the solutions? Yeah.
So if I start on the yaypay side, we are, I think, into about our third year in yaypay. And just for context for all the listeners, we're about 6-7 months into Pulte. And so on the yaypay side, I think overall our DSO is down 10 to 15%. Like I said, we didn't have a huge collections issue. And I think it's more about the consistency, when the person, our receivables team, I don't have to worry now when they're on PTO or when they're on leave that things are going to be followed up consistently, right? And so that from just a comfort point of view, and then flagging when things fall out of the guidelines, right? Okay, this one is, this invoice is, a certain amount of money, or receivable a certain amount of money, and it looks like it's, coming up to when it's due payment. How are we checking in, and linking that with our account managers, our sales team, so they can also keep close with the customer. And that was a big part of it, versus having siloed teams in finance and sales. So that's been really good. Now, when I went down to Sydney and met with Linda, our receivables person, she literally started praising yaypay, and I had to quickly take a video and send it to you guys, which I sent. And to have a receivables person kind of dancing and saying thank you. My job is, I can just deal with the exceptions, which is really good. So on that side, on the Tipalti side, I think it's been really it's been really good in many different levels, right? So I think for both of them, it's predictability. On the Tipalti side, we operate in 7 different countries and we buy things in 7 different countries. And our approval process with that and budgeting and just making sure that everything has the right check boxes on it as it goes through the process, that was causing us a lot of pain, a lot of headaches. And just very time consuming. And, if bills weren't in on the right time, didn't make the approval run, we would have to go back and do another run of, payments and things like that. So it was getting to a point where we were losing control of kind of where everything was at. And so it's been really good to have all that in one platform. And also from a compliance perspective, really helping us control, all the different authority levels and authorizing payments and making sure that those happen on time in the right currencies and without so many people needing to be involved in banking.
Yeah, I mean, the transparency is huge, right? Being able to just see the data and, within any given moment, if you have to run a certain situation or simulation, you have that data available. I couldn't even imagine how you'd feel having to go back to the days of, Excel spreadsheets and printed reports. I'm sure you get some of those, right? In a portion of your business,
yeah.
But I can imagine.
I think we have a mindset now that we can have a Google Sheet for a one-off report or a Google Sheet to define something new, but if it's being used and it gets out of date, we know it's a part of a gap in a process. So in both of these systems, we've been able to eliminate a number of Google Sheets that were running and manually updated. And I think for both of them, the yaypay, the dashboard of matrix of all the different receivables and where they're at, it gives both systems, but so in the yaypay's case, there's a couple of views there, especially with the graph of the DSO and what's outstanding and where the payment collections are at, that gives you a really easy language to communicate in the business. So NetSuite's awesome for finance folks and has lots of data in it. Presenting that in a very quick snapshot to everybody so they understand it can be difficult. And that yaypay dashboard's really clean for us to say, okay, this is it's orange, it's green, it's red. We know where everything's at, and our teams can use it. And our sales team, for example, they don't have access to the financial side of NetSuite, and we don't want them hunting around in there. We just want to give them what they need. We even have a piece where we have some very important customers and important payments that need to happen, and in those we've actually got specific custom workflows that the account managers are involved in, and so they know day by day what's happening and whether things are being confirmed. And so that's really good for visibility. On the yaypay side, just getting all the different invoices in emails has been awesome. And understanding that through the flow, we get notified and we can approve things and move them through, but we're not forwarding them around to each other and saying, what's this and what's that? And, we've set things up so they get approved by the right managers and the right business units before I see them, if I even need to see them. And that's really helped. I think it's given a lot of visibility. It's actually helped us save a lot of money, especially in these times of where the economy's at and where the world's at right now. None of us have money to waste. And so what we've been able to do with Tipalti is that it's made a lot of things that we buy very visible. And so a lot of the discussion comes out like, why are we buying this? Who's buying this? What for? And which is interesting because it spurs the next process, which is, okay, well, we're really efficient at paying suppliers, but what are we actually buying, right? So that's the next the next piece that we're looking at. But it's really made that very visible. And there's been a couple security things from Tipalti where it's notified, hey, this doesn't look right, and we've had to check them out. They've been all okay. But it's just good to know that I can reduce a little bit of anxiety from worrying about that on both sides, knowing that, okay, we're efficient in how we're collecting and we're efficient in how we're paying and compliant. And less anxiety means better sleep. And
100%. We all want better sleep, right?
Yeah. And, a big mission of mine is in the business, how do we reduce anxiety, right? And so it's a big part of that. So.
Yeah, there's enough to already be worried about, especially when you're focusing on, to your point on that customer aspect and making sure that you're really building those relationships. So, take away all of those other, anxiety points, as you mentioned, is huge, right? And it allows you to really focus your energy and not have to split where you're spending your time. So,
the supplier onboarding on Tipalti is really great as well. Saves a lot of time. And our accounts team, majority of them are based in Australia, so when they're dealing with US suppliers that have to fill in 1099s and all these other things, they're like, previously it was causing them a lot of, hunting down and chasing down different pieces of paper. And now they're like, great, just onboard them and they can take care of that.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I know that you mentioned this in some of your response on kind of the benefit that you've seen, but what would you say is some of kind of the estimated savings, whether it's time or cost or DSO or DPO, in this implementation process?
Yeah, so on the yaypay side, we used to have one person more or less full time running receivables. Now she's spending literally minutes a day just kind of checking things, and I'm her favorite, which is really good. And so, like, literally, it's that, and just checking to see if there's anything that needs to be escalated if it's not already automatically escalated. So it's been actually really game-changing for us in that regard. So the confidence that we're on our game and we're flagging things that don't seem right, and we're not wasting time, sending emails and doing manual efforts. So on that side, yaypay has been amazing for us. On the Tipalti side, I think if we measure on the speed that suppliers get paid really as the end process, I think that's gone down to I think days worth of turnaround time for us versus weeks. Like, we previously had a weekly process, and if things weren't matched in the weekly process, then things would delay and wait. Whereas with Tipalti now, things are a lot more just real time as they go through, and then the payments are batched and they move through. We've been able to track, for suppliers saying, hey, I haven't been paid, we've been able to get the visibility to say, well, you didn't enroll until yesterday, right? And we'll speed it up and get you paid, but, and so on our side, on the payment side, I think I don't have an exact measurement. The part for me would be, previously we had 3 or 4 people that were involved in the process, and also the manual effort of loading up all the payments in the banks and so forth was a little bit of a hidden art, and that's now very transparent. So, and we had a unique situation. Our financial controller, who'd been with us for 10 plus years, Dorothy, she's actually retiring in a couple of weeks' time. So thank you, Dorothy. And part of her transition was we implemented Tipalti and did this project with our new financial controller. So it was actually really good to take all of our old processes and use them in the transition to create the new processes and not have to hand over a lot of the stuff that we had done because we'd built them up over time. Recently, we just opened up in Canada, and we onboarded with Tipalti there really quickly, and that was easy for us to expand, get the bank account, open up into the new country, and know that all the payments and suppliers and everything's compliant. And that saves us a lot of headaches. And the reporting and control we're able to give up to the board level is really good.
That's fantastic. So talk a little bit about kind of how these changes that you've made have helped in this current COVID environment? Are there things that you noticed, it was, oh man, it was just in time for us. I know with yaypay, you've been on the solution a little bit longer, but are there things that you had to change, processes, expectations, maybe?
Yeah, I think underlying us, I mean, we want to do good business for the right reasons and work with great customers and great suppliers and partners. And we think that's a contribution to the world versus just, hey, go out and make a lot of money and tread on people as you get bigger, right? And so for us, some of our suppliers have slowed down payments to us. We've kind of made a commitment internally to make sure that we don't do that as much as we can. Make sure that especially a lot of our smaller suppliers, that we take care of them. We can measure that and see it. With all of us, making sure that we put all of our resources in the right things right now, which is our customers and their experience, our products, and adapting them to what's happening in the market, and not wasting time on, setting up emails and spreadsheets and reconciling things that are, that shouldn't be done, right? And so, even with Tipalti now, we're using their OCR and their service to have all the invoices entered for us and make sure that they're accurate, right? And that just means that all of the brain cycles in our team can focus on the customers and our partners, not focus on, a lot of the back end work. So we're way more efficient. We're way more compliant. People are able to take breaks and not worry that, okay, it's end of month, the whole team needs to be here. And so just trying to make those things or reduce the anxiety in them as much as we can. So.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And kudos to ServiceRocket and all the Rocketeers for, having that sensitivity on, the suppliers that you're paying during this time and making that kind of pledge to yourself. I think it's admirable. And it just speaks to, we're all banding together and happy that you have the solution that can help you have the visibility into at least how you can manage that and honor that pledge. So kudos to you guys and thank you for that. So to wrap it up, before we ask questions, I'm sure the audience is chomping at the bit to ask a bunch of different questions, but tell us some lessons learned or best practices that you can share in implementing them, searching for a solution, or just, with your team in general.
Sure. So the first one is, we were a distributed company, and we're even a more distributed company now. So before we had, we run our accounts and finance team between Chile, the United States, Australia, and Malaysia. And so we were distributed, but in each of those locations, they're kind of hubs of people. Now there are no hubs, right? Everyone is distributed. And so getting everyone on the same page is now even more important. And both of these solutions, yaypay and Tipalti, have really stepped up and proven, okay, these are great for working in a distributed environment. And for us, the high level concepts, of distributed systems, we do a lot of work, like I mentioned before, with the Atlassian toolset or with Facebook Workplace. So DevOps and engineering and being distributed was natural to us, but not necessarily natural to our finance team, right? They're used to working in little hubs. And so it's been helpful to kind of spend time with them and be deliberate. I would say both of these systems, I was very hands-on in the beginning and the kickoff, but to show the support. But actually, both of these systems were implemented by our finance team without requiring any other help. And Linda, our receivables person for yaypay, did all the implementation with your team herself. And so, which has been really good. And in Tipalti, our team has been involved with that. So it's been really, really good to see the strong customer success. And neither of your teams have kind of let us in the cold. If there are things that seem odd with our business or whatever, we've kind of attacked them and circled back and kind of never gave up on them. So I think it's been good to be deliberate and drive down, but also empower your team to do the implementation. And that way they own it. I think, there was a slight piece, oh my God, we're going to automate receivables. Am I still going to have a job because I'm the receivables team? But if you're the one implementing the system, you kind of know how it works, and it's been really good from that side. And I think for us, we just always want to continue to think about re-implementing. So a lot of these changes. So like I said, we did yaypay a couple of years back. We're now at a stage where we've actually improved NetSuite now, and I think it's worthwhile revisiting all the new features. And even though we what we did has been an amazing success, there's exponentially more we can do. And so whether that be, better automation, better plug into our sales team, just all these little bits of friction to be looking for them, right? So I definitely recommend, coming back and re-implementing. And the same thing's happened with Tipalti. We weren't a big user of purchase orders internally. We've got Tipalti going now, and now there's an internal project in NetSuite to drive purchase orders, right? And a better purchasing process before we pay suppliers. And so hand in hand, after that project's done, we're going to come back to Tipalti and say, right, now we have this, how do we leverage your system even more, right? And so that to and fro is, think about that as a long-term relationship and a long-term process, so that your teams continually think about driving your NetSuite implementation because of these solutions. And then as you drive the NetSuite solution to deliver more for you, what more can yaypay and Tipalti do for you? And make sure that we're feeding back to you that feedback, so that we keep driving you guys to deliver more.
Fabulous. Well, that's super helpful. Really excited at this point to get some questions from the audience. Thank you for sharing that story. And let's hop right in to see what folks are really wanting to hear answered. The first question that we have here, and for the folks on the line, there is a question and answer section that you can go ahead and type in your questions. I will get those on my end and then feed them to Rob for answer. So please feel free to do that. If you're having a hard time finding it, you can enter something into chat and we can direct you. But Rob, the first question, always, I've seen this one time and time again. What are your biggest remote work from home workforce challenges right now?
Cool. Our one is we pulled up a lot of data. A lot of people, a lot of Rocketeers are not taking PTO, right? A lot of folks had PTO plans to visit family and do things, and all those trips got canceled. And it's really worrying us that people are not taking a break away from work, even though they may be at home. And so, and again, both of these systems have automation and auditing and the alerts in, so that people can take a break. We're going through a re-education process internally saying, hey folks, I think our PTO is down about 60% this quarter compared to normal.
Wow.
And so, because it's just too easy to just log into work and go to work. And so, so that worries us, not just from a financial perspective, but just from an anxiety perspective, and giving permission for people to disconnect. So I would say that is probably a common one, and one that I think is going to have a lot of implications. And especially for some companies that have unlimited PTO, making sure that minimums are enforced so that people do disconnect. Because I think it's way too easy to just be stuck on the phone and the computer all day, every day, kind of every 15 minutes checking things. And so that would be the biggest challenge that I think we can all band together is, having people take breaks.
We actually, as a executive team, we actually talked about that this morning. A lot of the studies that I'm seeing from the different industry groups out there is people are actually working more hours. And some of it's just like you said, it's like you can, roll out of bed, come to your computer in your pajamas, right? Send a few emails, have your breakfast, have a coffee, and then people are returning back to it at night. And so I think it's really important to push that message down, not only to your employees, but, the customers that you have good relationships with, the suppliers. It's a real problem I think we all have to talk to. So I appreciate that one.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So the next question, I knew this one was going to come. It's about NetSuite. And I know you kind of peppered it throughout some of the questions, but, how difficult was it to implement and kind of extend the NetSuite offering with these two solutions?
Okay. So we actually put in NetSuite in 2013. And so it had been running for a long time, but we were operating very siloed. We kind of left NetSuite to the finance team, and the sales team used Salesforce, and everyone did their own thing, right? And maybe at the beginning of 2020, we ran an executive workshop, and worked with some advisors and said, look, we are just working so siloed. Why don't we get the most out of NetSuite and investigate? And so we actually have implemented a lot in NetSuite in the last 6 months. We moved our HRIS into Suite People. So now everyone in the company is a NetSuite user, and we've been rolling out SRP and some other modules. So it's actually reinvigorated the business. We have this internal saying, like, when all the data's in one place, it's never out of sync. And it's kind of interesting once you have Suite People and you have your people data there. It's amazing when you can weave that through all the different systems. So it's actually been really interesting, the impact that it's had and the savings that we've then made by decommissioning a number of other systems to have everything integrated into the one package. So I think my lesson there is to make sure that as a company, if you are using NetSuite, that from a C-level down, you're getting the most out of it, not just from finance. And, with both yaypay and Tipalti, as I mentioned before, we're able to extend out to our customers and our suppliers and give them a really strong solution and strong branding and strong experience. So, I think internally I've become a bit of a NetSuite fanboy, and which is kind of funny.
Yeah, right. I love it. There's a follow-on question that I'm just reading here, just saying, did you have to make any significant changes? Or the way that it was kind of implemented back in 2013? I think I'm kind of paraphrasing here. Yeah. Was there any kind of heavy lifting you had to do just to kind of get everything the way that you needed it to?
Actually, we're in quite good shape. NetSuite did our implementation back then, and we'd basically not touched it. The major things that we needed to do, we implemented multi-subsidiary customers to make sure that our global customers are accurate and we're not duplicating stuff, and making sure that we're taking a much more stronger stand and appreciation of the quality of the data that's in there. Whereas before it was like, hey, as long as the finance piece gets done, if the CRM data in NetSuite's a little bit off, we're okay because no one's looking at it. Now we're like, I think we're coming from a world of Salesforce where there was so much data and so much confusion in that system that we're trying to keep everything really, really clean and accurate. And when you do spend the time to keep things clean and accurate, then you have good metrics. So, for example, the mindset before was like, just get it in Salesforce, just get it in, it's all about speed. And now it's about, well, no point having speed if there are 4 different records for the same customer, right? So let's just slow down, get a bit of process, make sure the account manager knows where everything is. And so that discipline, and like I was saying, if you have that commitment across your executive team to build upon and really get the most out of NetSuite and the packages that are available, such as yaypay and Tipalti, then it's I think you stand to reap the benefits from that. So. Fabulous.
Well, we are just over time. Rob, thank you so much for the insight. Thank you for sharing your story, and for taking such good care of your internal team as well as your customers and suppliers. It's, as I mentioned before, it's admirable, and keep up the great work. We're happy to have you, and keep rocketeering.
All right, thanks for letting me share the story. And if you or anyone wants to reach out and learn more, I'm happy to respond on LinkedIn or anywhere you might be able to find me.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, everyone.